Natasha.
I'm Madeline.
Madeline, I'm so happy that we're here together. We've definitely had a one-on-one before, but I'm really looking forward to getting to know your story a little bit better.
And I feel the same way about you. So Natasha, tell me about your home and the memories that you have. So you were raised mostly in San Francisco?
So I was born in the Soviet Union, which then became Ukraine, and then now the part of Ukraine that I'm from was annexed by Russia, so I'm from Yalta in Crimea. And my family immigrated to the United States when I was 7, and I grew up with my mom and younger brother, who's actually now a rabbi.
So what was it like when you first came here and growing up here in a different culture and language?
So initially, even though we had studied a little bit of English prior to immigrating, we didn't speak it fluently, but my mom did. I remember like failing every spelling test and then also, like the dominant American culture. Like I remember the first time I had soda because we didn't have soda, and just suddenly like, oh my God, this is delicious. What is this? And then just wanting that all the time. When I was in college, I went to Russia, even though I'm from Ukraine. I went to Russia to perfect my Russian because I felt I had lost it. The train rides there, though, are quite memorable. Like everyone has a very similar way of traveling on the train. Like everyone packs the same food, like boiled potatoes, boiled eggs, because the trips are so long. Madeline, were there any cultural practices or lessons or traditions that you felt were really present and vibrant in your family?
Well, my parents were very civic-minded. They were involved with their temple. They were involved with the symphony. And they also believed that as Jews, we had to show up and take care of other people. And the word that I was raised on is Rahmanis, which I found out as an adult means empathy. And so they had a deep belief that as Jews, we show up and we give back.
I think, with my mother's story is that, we didn't really grow up with religion because it wasn't allowed, it was forbidden. And then when we came here, she did tell us we were Jewish and we were welcomed by a lot of Jewish organizations. And I just remember thinking like, wow, she's so strong, she can do so much. But then my brother and I transferred that too, I think, into the service field because now I work in the school system and my brother is a rabbi, and I just feel like we saw how hard she worked for us and for herself. And so we wanted to translate that. Like, how do we give back to others the way we were given so many opportunities? I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a therapist or a clinician.
Yeah, I can actually. I grew up with my aunts that flew from the Midwest every summer and spent a time with us. And we couldn't wait for them to come because we sat on the living room floor while they sat and told us the stories of their life, of immigration, of survival. And I was in awe of all of that. And I didn't do well in school. I had dyslexia. All 4 of us, I don't know how we got out of kindergarten, but we did. You don't want me doing your bank book, but I can certainly hold your chaotic family in my arms. And I went to my own therapy and did my own work, and I always knew that I wanted to be a therapist. I'm very comfortable in it, and after doing my own work, I was even more comfortable in being able to be there. That's not to say that sometimes it's hard. I love every minute of it, and I am still so happy to be able to do it.
Yeah, you are very easy to talk to.
So let's talk about compassion, because that's the field that we're in.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know if you're born with it. I don't think it's in our DNA, but maybe it is. Okay. I think it really is in the environment that we're raised in, and my parents were that way.
I think for me, it's almost like we're talking about a nature versus nurture question, right? So I think for me, compassion So it's almost twofold, right? Because you have compassion for others, but you also have compassion for yourself. And those, I think, can be two very different things, right? We see people who have too much compassion for themselves and none for others, or too much compassion for others and none for themselves, right? They're selfless. But I think that it's a combination of both. Going back to my students, unfortunately, I have many students who come out of abusive households and consequently are in foster care, or just their parents demonstrate very aggressive behaviors and so forth. And the children are just so compassionate. And I always wonder, like, where did that come from? Because that's not being modeled to them, right? And then I think about the opposite. What about children who have extremely compassionate surroundings and yet still hold on to this anger that maybe to us may seem like, where is it coming from? What's the trigger for this anger? But it's in there. But I think it's so important to have a balance, and that has to be taught. Like, when are you giving too much, right? And not filling your own cup or your own bucket? And when are you giving too little? And so I do think that has to happen with intention.
So how do you see your Jewish education and background and family Jewish life influencing you as a therapist, or where do they kind of connect?
Coincidentally, I was actually talking about this at work today because I had to do a suicide risk assessment. I'm actually really grateful that I'm in a community where the synagogue supports talking about getting mental health services. It doesn't necessarily have to be medication, right? Some people are open about that, some people are not. But getting treatment, talking to someone besides your family, even though I grew up too with the mentality of, why do you need to go to see a therapist when you can talk to your family or friends, right? And so, yes, there is that cultural aspect, but I really appreciate that through the progressive Jewish communities that I've been in, which focus so much on social justice, include mental health, the battle for better mental health services and supporting people with mental health needs in their call for social action. So, I don't know. What do you think about
No, I think you're spot on. I think Temple Isaiah is an incredible place to ask for what you need, to be part of absolutely everything. I think the best thing, well, not the best thing, but one of the greatest things is when COVID hit. This temple in 48 hours pivoted. And there were classes for everyone online. There were classes in everything. I mean, you could get I always joke, you could get a PhD here, you know?
I think one thing Temple Isaiah does really well all the time, but especially I was introduced to it during COVID, is giving people a space, whether it's physical or on Zoom, or just a time to talk about what they're going through or what they're thinking or anything, and a place to be heard. And that's one thing I really loved about Isaiahans helping Isaiahans, that it is a space where it's not just one direction, like the clergy working with you or a clinician who's volunteering working with you, but it's almost this peer-to-peer connection where everyone has an opportunity to share something that they're going through, and it's saying, okay, here's a space for your voice. We're not going to crowd you or tell you if it's right or wrong, but we want to listen to you. And I think this synagogue does that really well.
Really well. In fact, it's a place to kind of normalize your feelings. Not that they are all the same, but how normal it is to feel this way during COVID or during any big, horrible mess of life.